Yeah, she did a really great job.
I'm sure she did.
We're celebrating Katie's new chapter.
Everything's gonna be like okay between us. I'm here to help with the line.
The gang was all there.
Mm.
They think you're...
There's something I've got to tell you. It's about Katie.
But your talent, your passion, you are the most gifted.
The Bold and the Beautiful spoilers next 3 weeks. Katie's team players, Eric's second chance, and new Dylan mystery. The Bold and the Beautiful B&B spoilers for the next 3 weeks, December 22nd to January 9th, reveal that Katie Spencer, Heather Tom, will go after some team players while Eric Forrester, John McCook, presumably gets a second chance at the design career he still wants. A new Dylan, Sydney Bullock mystery will also get underway. So let's talk about all the excitement. The week of December 22nd to 26th will bring Deke Sharp's, Harrison Cohn, difficult updates since it looks like he'll fill Deacon Sharp, Sean Cannon, in on his Forrester firing. Remy Price, Christian Weissman, will also make an appearance, so he may console Deke and hope this leads to their reconciliation soon. Over with Thomas Forrester, Matthew Atkinson, and Hope Logan Spencer, Annika Noel, they'll have a tense discussion about hope for the future and the direction it's headed in now. Hope may acknowledge that Thomas has designed for her successfully in the past, but she may push him to respect her marriage to Liam Spencer, Scott Clifton, and understand that work will be the extent of their relationship. As for Brooke Logan Forrester, Catherine Kelly Lang, she'll open up to Donna Logan Forrester, Jennifer Garais, and perhaps voice concerns about Katie being in over her head on this new fashion house. Some holiday merriment will eventually kick off, so look for Brooke to get a sweet gift from Rich Forrester, Torsten K., while John Finn Finnegan, Tanner Novlin, and Steffi Forrester Finnegan, Jacqueline McInnes would smooch underneath the mistletoe. Steffi and Finn will ultimately take Kelly Spencer, Sophia Paris, and Hayes Finnegan, Brian David Garlick, to the Forrester estate, where Eric will dress up as Santa with Mrs. Claus and a dressed-up Donna by his side. Carter Walton, Lawrence St. Victor, will also bring Daphne Rose, Muriel Hilaire, to the Christmas party, so they'll share a romantic kiss before all the guests gather around the piano for the usual holiday song. After a repeat episode airs on December 25th, B&B viewers will see a new show on December 26th as Brooke and Ridge visit Bill Spencer's Don Diamant office. That's where Katie will offer up a slideshow and reveal all the details she's already nailed down regarding her fashion house, including what she's decided to call it. Bill will rush to Katie's defense if Ridge and Brooke try to act like she's not up for this challenge. At the beach house, Dylan will get an offer she didn't see coming. Will Spencer, Crew Morrow, and Electra Forrester, Linnea Grace, will catch Dylan off guard by encouraging her to spend the night. During the week of December 29th to January 2nd, there should be some hints about where the show's going with this Dylan situation. Could Dylan develop a fixation like the one Luna Nozawa Lisa Yamada had? There might be a twist if Dylan gets obsessed with both Will and Electra. Whatever the case, there will be some Dylan developments along with some potential New Year's Eve parties since that holiday's coming up too. Back with Katie, she may begin assembling her fashion team. Deke has a lot of potential as a designer, so Katie might snatch him up now that Forrester has cut him loose. Hope might even be tempted to join Deke at Katie's new fashion house, especially if she continues to feel shut out of decisions on her line at Forrester. Naturally, Katie's fashion house could bring an amazing opportunity for Eric as well, one that could bring him out of his short-lived retirement. The week of January 5th to 9th will inevitably bring additional conflict for the Forresters, Logans, and Spencers. The more work Katie does in preparation for her fashion house, the more riled Ridge and Brooke may get. Ridge won't be happy about Katie hiring Forrester rejects and potentially even poaching current employees. It could lead to Ridge feuding with Eric again if his dad accepts a job offer. Ridge may think Katie's fashion house is going to fail and worry about Eric associating the Forrester name with this fiasco. Of course, Eric may stand his ground and insist he's going to help Katie make her new project a success instead. This might even lead to a wager between Ridge and Eric, so stay tuned for more news on what's in store for the father and son. The Bold and the Beautiful spoilers say the next 3 weeks will bring plenty of dramatic moments. The Bold and the Beautiful spoilers. Finn's shower spy, Dylan can't take her eyes off new obsession? The Bold and the Beautiful B&B spoilers hint that John Finnegan, Tanner Novlin, may soon have a shower spy. Will Dylan, Sydney Bullock, find that she can't take her eyes off her new obsession? Dylan was distraught over wiping Finn's daughter off the map, so she visited him with updates and a heartfelt apology following Luna Nozawa's, Lisa Yamada, demise. Finn offered plenty of reassurance and pulled Dylan into a warm embrace, so something may have shifted inside for the potentially lonely teacher. Dylan was traumatized multiple times by Luna, who held her hostage before the shooting chaos went down. Of course, Dylan also accidentally ran over Luna with her car, so all of this has really taken a toll on her. Dylan seemed touched over Finn's forgiveness and the sweet words he offered her in a difficult moment. Finn is a kind, attractive man with so many wonderful qualities, so no one could blame Dylan if she developed a crush. However, between Dylan's trauma and B&B's need for another out-of-control character, there are good reasons to worry about the path Dylan is headed down. That brings us to some intriguing B&B spoilers for the December 26th episode. That's when Dylan will gather at the beach house with Finn, Steffi Forrester Finnegan, Jacqueline McInnes Wood, Will Spencer, Crew Morrow, and Electra Forrester Linnea Grace. If this story were just about Electra and Will, it would have been easy to leave Steffi and Finn out of it. The fact that Finn and Steffi will be at the beach house for this party too is interesting. The show also released a preview video for the week of December 22nd to 26th that shows Finn rinsing off under Will's outdoor shower. Finn's about to put that sizzling six-pack of his on full display, so what if Dylan ends up spying nearby? This could be a sign that Dylan is getting a little too fixated on Finn, and might be a hint about where this storyline is going. Will just had a stalker story involving Luna, and before that, Electra had one of her own since Remy Price, Christian Weissman, was obsessed with her. Maybe it'll be Finn's turn to have a stalker scare if Dylan's potential crush spirals into disturbing territory. Will and Electra will invite Dylan to stay the night with them, but maybe their role in all this is a bit of a red herring. Dylan's real obsession might be with Finn, and could give him a new storyline along with Steffi. The Bold and the Beautiful spoilers say some wild Dylan news could be coming up, so stay tuned for updates on all the drama. The Bold and the Beautiful spoilers Tuesday, December 23rd. Katie's offer for Eric Donna's Christmas pitch. The Bold and the Beautiful B&B spoilers for Tuesday, December 23rd, reveal that Eric Forrester, John McCook, will have an emotional visit, but Donna Logan Forrester, Jennifer Garais, will make a tempting pitch and try to lift his spirits. B&B fans know Eric agreed to try doing things Rich Forrester's, Torsten K. way, which means he's retiring from Forrester Creations. However, Eric will struggle with the reality of that decision as he stops by the office again. On Tuesday's episode, Eric will spend some time reflecting on his career and everything he built for his family. Although Eric deserves a break after putting so many years into Forrester, he doesn't really want to walk away and stop making memories there. Eric would rather relaunch his career instead, but he knows he's not really needed and wanted at Forrester Creations anymore. That'll be tough for Eric to accept, so he'll mull over some difficult emotions and try to wrap his head around what's next. Brooke Logan Forrester, Catherine Kelly Lang, will also stop by the Forrester mansion, where she'll chat with Donna now that they both know about Katie Spencer's Heather Tom new fashion house. There's a good chance Katie will offer Eric a fresh opportunity to design and feel useful again down the road. In the meantime, Eric will get another tempting offer instead, namely one from a hopeful Donna. It turns out Donna will urge Eric to celebrate Christmas and focus on his family. Although Donna will acknowledge that Eric's disappointed over stepping back from Forrester, she won't think he should miss out on all the holiday fun. Once Donna proposes making Christmas extra special this year instead, Eric will ultimately get on board. In fact, Eric will end up playing Santa at the upcoming gathering while Donna dresses up as Mrs. Claus. That news is sure to delight Hayes Finnegan, Brian David Garlick, and Kelly Spencer Sophia Paras by midweek. The Bold and the Beautiful spoilers say Donna and Eric will make sure this is a holiday to remember, so stay tuned for updates on all the festivities. The Bold and the Beautiful spoilers. For unusual love interest for Thomas. The Bold and the Beautiful B&B spoilers reveal that Thomas Forrester Matthew Atkinson is back in town. As a star designer, we expect him to have some beautiful arm candy, and as such he has a few choices. Who do you think is the right woman for Thomas? 1. Dylan. Miss Dylan, Sydney Bullock, is the art teacher who accidentally killed Luna Nozawa, Lisa Yamada, with her car, or so she says. It's clear the show is giving her more airtime, since she's been invited to a sleepover with Electra Forrester, Linnea Grace, and Will Spencer, Crew Morrow. She would be perfect for Thomas, polite, professional, and perhaps a bit twisted deep in the noggin like Thomas is. Do you also get a weird vibe from Dylan? If she is harboring a Thomas-like nuttiness, they would definitely be relationship goals. To Daphne. Daphne the Nose Rose, Muriel Hilaire, has a lot in common with Thomas. She supports the family and spoke up for Eric Forrester, John McCook, when Rich Forrester, Torsten K., tried to make him retire. It was odd that Daphne was so passionate about letting Eric die doing what he loves. Thomas would be impressed by her stand, and regard her in a bright light if he knew how she stood behind his grandfather. 3. Random thirsty FC model. We have to throw this in. Have you seen how all the FC models go gaga when Thomas is in the building? Why not pair him up with Redwood or Sequoia or one of the other tall gals and call it a day? At least it would keep him away from Hope Logan, Annika Noel. For Hope Logan. Speaking of Hope, tons of fans believe that Thomas will drive a wedge between her and Liam Spencer, Scott Clifton. It's not like he hasn't before. Soap couples are notorious for having short-lived happiness. Maybe Thomas has an agenda to win the blonde back once and for all? Thomas mentioned that he will work in both Paris and LA, but would a pretty face sway his mind? Tell us who you want to see paired with the hunky designer, and if he should return full-time to LA. Be sure to catch up on everything happening with The Bold and the Beautiful right now. The Bold and the Beautiful spoilers. Katie's power play, Eric's second act, and the dark mystery surrounding Dylan. Over the next 3 weeks, The Bold and the Beautiful is positioning itself for a major shift in power, purpose, and emotional control as December turns into January. While the surface story may look festive with Christmas parties, mistletoe kisses, and Santa suits, the deeper narrative reveals something far more consequential. A generational struggle over legacy, identity, and who truly belongs at the center of Forrester Creations' future. At the heart of it all is Katie Spencer, quietly but decisively stepping into a role no one fully expected her to claim. Her new fashion house isn't just a business venture. It's a philosophical rebellion against Rich Forrester's iron grip on creativity and control. At the same time, Eric Forrester finds himself facing a defining crossroads: accept quiet retirement or seize one last opportunity to create on his own terms. And hovering at the edge of all this optimism is a darker, more unsettling storyline involving Dylan, whose trauma may be evolving into obsession, with Finn potentially in her sights. Together, these arcs form a tightly woven tapestry of ambition, resentment, redemption, and psychological danger. Katie Spencer's quiet revolution. Katie Spencer has never been the loudest Logan, nor the most impulsive. For years, she's often been underestimated, viewed as supportive rather than strategic, emotional rather than visionary. But the next 3 weeks change that perception dramatically. Katie isn't reacting anymore. She's building. Her decision to launch her own fashion house is not born out of jealousy or spite, but out of clarity. She sees the gaps in Forrester Creations. She sees the talent being wasted, the voices being silenced, and the creative stagnation masked as tradition. And most importantly, she sees opportunity. When Brooke and Rich first hear about Katie's plans, their concern isn't just sisterly or familial. It's territorial. Brooke, who has spent decades aligned with Forrester power, worries Katie is in over her head. Rich, meanwhile, reads the move for what it truly is: a direct challenge to his authority. Katie isn't asking permission. She's already moving forward, already assembling resources, already naming her brand. And when she presents her polished slideshow to Bill Spencer, it becomes clear this isn't a whim. Katie has thought through every detail, from staffing to branding to vision. Bill, recognizing both the seriousness and the potential, becomes her unexpected shield. He doesn't just support her. He defends her against Ridge and Brooke's skepticism, signaling that this new fashion house will not be easily dismissed. Deke Sharp and the rise of the rejected. One of Katie's smartest early moves may be her interest in Deke Sharp. Fired from Forrester Creations and left reeling, Deke represents exactly the kind of underutilized talent Katie wants to champion. His dismissal isn't about lack of skill. It's about politics, hierarchy, and Ridge's narrow vision of who deserves a seat at the table. Deke's emotional fallout spills over into his relationship with Deacon Sharp, forcing uncomfortable conversations and long-buried resentments to surface. Remy Price's appearance adds another layer, as he offers comfort and possibly reconciliation, hinting that Deke's professional collapse may ironically be the catalyst for personal healing. If Katie brings Deke onto her team, it won't just strengthen her brand. It will send a clear message to Ridge that his rejects have found a new home. And that's a message Ridge will not take lightly. Hope Logan caught between loyalty and opportunity. Hope Logan finds herself in an increasingly untenable position. On one hand, she remains tied to Forrester creations through hope for the future. On the other, she feels increasingly sidelined, particularly as Ridge tightens his control and decisions are made without her input. Her conversation with Thomas Forrester is telling. While she acknowledges his past success as her designer, she draws a firm line emotionally. Her marriage to Liam is non-negotiable, and whatever history she shares with Thomas must stay in the professional lane. Yet even as she asserts boundaries, the tension is undeniable. Katie's fashion house offers Hope something Forrester may no longer provide: agency, creative autonomy, respect. If Hope feels pushed out long enough, the temptation to leave, especially if Deke makes the leap, could become irresistible. Such a move would not only devastate Ridge but fundamentally alter the balance of power in Los Angeles fashion. Eric Forrester's crisis of purpose. Perhaps the most emotionally charged storyline belongs to Eric Forrester. Officially retired, unofficially heartbroken, Eric's return to the Forrester office is not about paperwork or nostalgia. It's grief. He's mourning the loss of relevance, of purpose, of daily creation. For a man who built an empire stitch by stitch, stepping away feels less like rest and more like erasure. Donna Logan understands this better than anyone. While Brooke worries about logistics and reputations, Donna focuses on Eric's heart. Her pitch isn't about business. It's about joy, about Christmas, about reminding Eric that he is still loved, still valued, still essential. Her suggestion that he embrace the holiday leads to one of the season's warmest images. Eric dressed as Santa, Donna by his side as Mrs. Claus, delighting Hayes and Kelly. On the surface, it's festive fluff, but beneath it lies something deeper. Eric reclaiming visibility, presence, and meaning. And then there's Katie. Though not immediate, the possibility of Eric joining Katie's fashion house looms large. It would give him exactly what he wants: a chance to design again, free from Ridge's shadow. But it would also ignite a firestorm. Ridge would see it as betrayal, not just professionally but personally. Father versus son. Legacy versus reinvention. A wager between them feels inevitable. Ridge Forrester's fear of losing control. Ridge Forrester thrives on dominance, creative, emotional, and institutional. Katie's rise threatens all three. Her hiring of former Forrester employees feels like poaching. Her potential partnership with Eric feels sacrilegious. And the possibility that her brand could succeed terrifies him, because it would prove something he's spent years denying: that Forrester Creations does not own talent, vision, or innovation. Brooke, caught between sister and husband, becomes increasingly conflicted. She understands Katie's ambition, but she also fears the fallout. If Ridge digs in, and he always does, the fracture within the Logan-Forrester alliance could become permanent. Dylan, trauma, fixation, and a brewing storm. While boardrooms and family feuds dominate the daylight hours, something far more unsettling is brewing in the shadows. Dylan's storyline begins in tragedy. Held hostage by Luna Nozawa, traumatized by violence, burdened by guilt after accidentally killing Luna. When she approaches Finn with an apology, his compassion is genuine and potentially dangerous. Finn's warmth, forgiveness, and physical comfort may have triggered something Dylan wasn't prepared for. In her fractured emotional state, kindness may feel like salvation, attraction may feel like safety, and fixation may feel like purpose. Her presence at the beach house gathering is already suspicious. That Finn and Steffi are included in what should have been a Will and Electra-centric event raises red flags. The preview showing Finn showering outdoors, vulnerable, exposed, feels deliberately ominous. If Dylan is watching, the line between admiration and obsession may already be crossed. The show has a history of escalating trauma into danger. Luna stalked Will. Remy obsessed over Electra. Now the pattern may repeat, with Finn as the target and Steffi as collateral damage. Whether Dylan becomes fixated on Finn alone or develops a more complex obsession involving Will and Elektra remains to be seen. But one thing is clear. Her storyline is not headed toward healing. It's headed toward escalation. Thomas Forrester and the question of love. Thomas Forrester's return adds another wild card. His romantic future is deliberately ambiguous, with several unusual possibilities floated. Dylan, with her quiet intensity and moral grayness, could mirror Thomas's own past darkness. Daphne Rose, fiercely loyal and unafraid of confrontation, shares his devotion to family. Even a random Forrester model would offer simplicity, something Thomas rarely experiences. And then there's Hope. No matter how firmly Hope insists the door is closed, Thomas has reopened it before. Fans know history has a way of repeating itself on this show, especially when temptation, proximity, and unresolved feelings collide. Thomas splitting his time between Paris and LA suggests mobility, but also indecision. Where he ultimately lands may depend not on career, but on the emotional gravitational pull of the woman who captures his attention. The weeks ahead: conflict, consequence, and collision. As January approaches, the threads tighten. Katie's fashion house inches closer to reality. Eric faces a choice that could redefine his final chapter. Rich prepares for battle. Hope weighs loyalty against liberation. Dylan edges closer to the brink. And Thomas stands at the crossroads of desire and destiny. The holidays may offer brief warmth, but the fallout is coming. The Bold and the Beautiful isn't just setting up drama. It's reshaping its core dynamics. And when the dust settles, the Forrester world may look nothing like it did before. The Bold and the Beautiful spoilers. A quiet coup at Forrester, a dangerous obsession, and the battle for the show's soul. As The Bold and the Beautiful moves from the warmth of Christmas into the uncertainty of a new year, the show is quietly orchestrating one of its most consequential transitions in years. This is not just about romance or rivalry. It's about ownership, relevance, and survival in a world where legacy no longer guarantees control. What makes this arc especially compelling is that none of the central players are behaving irrationally. Everyone believes they are right. Everyone believes they are protecting something essential. And that is exactly what makes the coming fallout so explosive. At the core are three intersecting forces: Katie Spencer's emerging authority, Eric Forrester's refusal to fade away, and Dylan's psychological unraveling. These stories are not isolated. They are feeding off one another, creating pressure points that will inevitably collide. Katie Spencer's transformation, from support system to power center. Katie Spencer's evolution over the next 3 weeks is subtle but profound. She is not storming into boardrooms or making grand declarations. Instead, she is doing something far more dangerous to the existing power structure. She is proving competence. In the Forrester ecosystem, power has always been loud. Rich dominates meetings. Steffi enforces loyalty. Brooke negotiates through emotion and history. Katie, by contrast, moves quietly, armed with preparation, foresight, and strategy. Her slideshow presentation is symbolic. It represents a woman who has already done the work before asking for validation. The brand name, the staffing plans, the creative direction, none of it is theoretical. It is real, actionable, and already in motion. This is why Ridge reacts with hostility rather than curiosity. He understands instinctively that Katie's fashion house is not meant to coexist with Forrester creations. It is meant to compete. And perhaps worse, it is meant to expose what Forrester has become under his leadership. Exclusionary, insular, and creatively stagnant. Bill Spencer's role. The unexpected kingmaker. Bill Spencer's involvement elevates Katie's venture from risky to inevitable. Bill does not invest emotionally. He invests when he sees leverage. His defense of Katie is not just brotherly loyalty. It is recognition of an opportunity to disrupt Ridge's monopoly over the fashion world. Bill has always been most comfortable backing insurgents, not empires. By standing behind Katie, Bill ensures that Ridge cannot simply dismiss her or wait for her to fail quietly. Any attempt to sabotage her will now come with consequences, legal, financial, and personal. This dynamic also repositions Bill within the Forrester-Logan-Spencer triangle. Instead of being an external agitator, he becomes a silent architect of change, influencing the industry without stepping directly into it. Eric Forrester, a man facing erasure. Eric Forrester's storyline cuts deeper than retirement. What he is experiencing is existential displacement. For decades, Eric's identity has been inseparable from creation. Fashion is not his job, it is his language. To be told, even lovingly, that his time has passed is to be told that his voice no longer matters. His return to the Forrester office is an act of mourning. Every sketch, every mannequin, every design space reminds him of a life that still exists, but without him. Donna Logan understands this instinctively. Where Brooke intellectualizes the situation, Donna emotionalizes it. Her Christmas pitch is not avoidance, it is preservation. She is buying Eric time to remember who he is before making a decision that could permanently diminish him. Eric playing Santa is not a novelty. It is a reclamation of presence. He is still the patriarch, still the center, still the one who brings joy. But joy will not be enough. Sooner rather than later, Eric will have to choose between comfort and purpose. Katie's fashion house represents something Forrester Creations no longer offers him: autonomy. If Eric joins Katie, it will not be about defying Ridge, it will be about surviving himself. Ridge Forrester's fear: loss of narrative control. Ridge Forrester's greatest fear has never been failure. It is irrelevance. As long as Forrester Creations remains the unquestioned center of the fashion universe, Ridge controls the narrative. Who succeeds, who fails, who is worthy. Katie's emergence threatens to decentralize that power. What truly unsettles Ridge is not Katie's ambition. It is her restraint. She is not acting emotionally, which leaves him nothing to exploit. She is not reckless, which leaves him no reason to intervene for her own good. Her hiring of Forrester rejects strikes directly at Ridge's authority. It suggests that his judgments are not final, that talent does not belong to him. Eric's potential involvement is the final blow. If Eric chooses Katie, Ridge loses not just a father's approval, but the symbolic ownership of the Forrester legacy. This is why a wager between them feels inevitable. Ridge needs validation. Eric needs dignity. Neither can back down without losing something essential. Hope Logan's quiet crisis. Hope Logan is standing on emotional quicksand. Her conversation with Thomas reveals how fragile her position has become. She is still married, still loyal, still cautious, but she is also increasingly powerless within her own brand. Hope for the future was once her creative sanctuary. Now it feels like a project she merely fronts. Decisions are made without her. Directions are imposed. Her voice is minimized. Katie's fashion house offers something Hope hasn't felt in a long time: agency. If Hope leaves Forrester, it won't be because of Thomas or Liam. It will be because she refuses to be ornamental. And that decision would ripple through every relationship in her life. Dylan. Trauma repeating itself as danger. Dylan's storyline is where the show's psychological tension peaks. Her trauma is real. Her guilt is immense. And her vulnerability is palpable. But The Bold and the Beautiful has never been a show that allows trauma to exist in isolation. It transforms it. Finn's kindness becomes a catalyst. His forgiveness becomes an anchor. And in Dylan's fractured emotional state, that anchor may turn into obsession. The outdoor shower scene is not accidental. It is framed to evoke vulnerability, intimacy, and exposure. If Dylan is watching, the show is signaling a shift from recovery to fixation. What makes this storyline particularly dangerous is Finn's obliviousness. He does not see himself as a target. He sees himself as a healer. That blind spot puts Steffi at risk, not because Finn would ever betray her, but because obsession does not require consent. If Dylan's fixation escalates, it will not be loud at first. It will be quiet, observational, rationalized. And by the time anyone realizes what's happening, it may already be too late. Thomas Forrester, the wild card. Thomas exists in a narrative limbo that is both deliberate and dangerous. His potential love interests reflect the show's internal debate about who Thomas is now. Is he reformed, still volatile, capable of genuine connection, or destined to repeat destructive patterns? Dylan represents emotional symmetry. Daphne represents ideological alignment. Hope represents unresolved destiny. Thomas splitting time between Paris and Ella suggests a man who has not yet chosen his center. That choice, romantic or professional, will determine whether he stabilizes. For most of its history, the bold and the beautiful has thrived on visible conflict. Affairs explode into the open. Betrayals are exposed in crowded rooms. Screams echo across offices and living rooms alike. But the most dangerous era for any empire is not when enemies shout, it is when they whisper. That is the era the show has quietly entered. As the calendar turns toward a new year, the battles unfolding on the bold and the beautiful are no longer about who is sleeping with whom. They are about who owns the future, who controls legacy, and who gets erased when power changes hands. Romance still exists, but it is now weaponized. Trauma still matters, but it is now strategic. And love, once the engine of the show, has become collateral damage in a much larger war. This is not a transition period. This is a reckoning. The end of the old order. For decades, Forrester Creations has operated under an unspoken assumption. The Forrester name is destiny. If you were born into it, you inherited authority. If you married into it, you borrowed relevance. And if you challenged it, you were eventually punished or absorbed. That system worked because everyone, Logan's included, eventually accepted it. What is happening now is different. For the first time, the power structure of the show is being challenged without emotional chaos. No screaming matches. No impulsive affairs. No grand betrayals. Instead, the threat comes in the form of preparation, intelligence, and restraint. And that threat has a name. Katie Logan. Katie Logan. The woman no one was watching. Katie Logan's rise is the most underestimated storyline on the canvas. And that is precisely why it is the most dangerous. Katie has always existed in the negative space of the show. She was the supportive sister, the forgiving ex-wife, the emotional stabilizer in rooms filled with volatility. That positioning trained everyone around her to stop watching her. People don't guard against what they don't see as a threat. But Katie has been watching all of them. Her proposed fashion house is not a whim. It is not a rebound project. It is not an ego play. It is the result of years spent observing how Forrester Creations actually functions, who gets credit, who gets sidelined, and which voices are silenced under the guise of family unity. When Katie walks into that meeting with a fully realized brand presentation, she is not asking for permission. She is testing reactions. And the reactions tell her everything she needs to know. Ridge's hostility, Steffi's guarded suspicion, Eric's quiet curiosity. Each response reveals a fracture in the system. Katie's brilliance is not just in what she proposes. It is in who she invites. By recruiting designers and creatives who feel undervalued or discarded by Forrester, she exposes the company's biggest weakness. Loyalty at Forrester Creations is conditional, not reciprocal. People are loyal until they are replaced. Ridge Forrester, a king who feels the crown slipping. Ridge Forrester does not fear competition. He fears displacement. For years, Ridge has positioned himself as the creative soul of Forrester Creations, the gatekeeper of taste, vision, and legitimacy. What Katie's venture threatens is not profit margins. It threatens the idea that Ridge is indispensable. And Ridge knows it. His reaction is not rational because this is not a business concern. It is an identity crisis. If Katie succeeds, it proves that fashion excellence does not require Forrester blood. If Eric supports her, it proves that legacy does not belong exclusively to the next generation. And if talent follows her, it proves that Ridge's authority has always been enforced, not earned. This is why Ridge bristles at the idea of a friendly competitor. He understands instinctively that competition neutralizes hierarchy. Once options exist, control evaporates. Bill Spencer, the silent accelerator. Bill Spencer's involvement is the accelerant that turns a spark into an inferno. Bill does not back Katie out of sentimentality. He backs her because she represents disruption with discipline. Bill has always respected intelligence over emotion, and Katie's approach appeals directly to his instincts. Unlike Ridge, Bill understands modern power. It is not loud. It is strategic. It is mobile. By supporting Katie, Bill destabilizes the Forrester monopoly without ever stepping into the fashion world himself. He becomes the shadow partner, funding possibility while letting others take the heat. And Bill knows something Ridge does not. Once Eric begins questioning his place, the Forrester family becomes vulnerable from the inside. Eric Forrester, the patriarch facing erasure. Eric Forrester's storyline is the emotional core of this entire arc. And perhaps the most tragic, Eric is not afraid of death. He is afraid of being finished. For a man whose identity has always been creation, the slow removal of authority feels like suffocation. Decisions are made without him. Celebrations occur around him, not because of him. His name remains on the building, but his voice no longer echoes inside it. Donna Logan understands this pain more deeply than anyone else. She does not argue with logic, she argues with memory. Her insistence on Christmas traditions, on Eric's role as Santa, is not nostalgia. It is resistance. She is fighting erasure with presence. But presence is temporary. What Eric truly wants is purpose. And Katie's fashion house offers something Forrester Creations no longer does. Relevance without condescension. If Eric joins Katie, it will not be betrayal. It will be survival. Brooke Logan, the woman caught between worlds. Brooke Logan senses the shift, and it terrifies her. Brooke has spent her entire life navigating power through relationships. She understands how to influence men, how to maintain proximity to authority, how to survive inside dominant systems. Katie's independence threatens that model. If Katie proves that success does not require proximity to Ridge or Forrester Creations, Brooke's entire survival strategy becomes obsolete. This is why Brooke vacillates between support and fear. She wants Katie empowered, but not so empowered that it dismantles the world Brooke knows how to navigate. Brooke is not an antagonist here. She is a woman realizing that the rules she mastered are changing, and she may not be equipped for what comes next. Hope Logan. The cost of being good. Hope Logan's quiet dissatisfaction is one of the most realistic portrayals the show has ever done. Hope did everything right. She chose stability. She chose forgiveness. She chose maturity. And in return, she was slowly stripped of agency. Hope for the future was supposed to be her legacy. Her voice in an industry dominated by louder personalities. Instead, it has become a brand she represents, not one she controls. Katie's venture reawakens something dangerous in Hope, the belief that she deserves more than survival. Hope's eventual choice will not be about Thomas, Liam, or even fashion. It will be about whether she continues to shrink herself to maintain peace, or finally claim space regardless of the fallout. Dylan, trauma turning inward. Dylan's storyline is not a redemption arc. It is a warning. Trauma does not always explode outward. Sometimes it coils inward, searching for meaning, attachment, and validation. Finn's compassion, genuine and unguarded, becomes a focal point for Dylan's fractured psyche. The danger is not seduction. The war that now threatens Forrester Creations will not be fought in boardrooms alone. It will unfold in living rooms, hospital corridors, fashion studios, and private conversations that never make the minutes. It is a war defined by loyalty, and by the quiet realization that loyalty, once broken, never truly repairs itself. At the center of this storm stands Eric Forrester, a man who built an empire and now finds himself standing inside it like a museum exhibit. Admired, preserved, and ultimately ignored. Eric versus Ridge. When succession becomes a betrayal. The conflict between Eric and Ridge has always existed, but it has traditionally been masked by reverence. Ridge respected his father as the founder, the visionary, the original force. Eric, in turn, respected Ridge as the heir apparent, the torchbearer, the future. That mutual respect is eroding. Ridge's mistake has been assuming that reverence equals surrender. Eric never relinquished his identity as a creator. He merely paused it. And now, as Katie Logan offers him a chance to contribute without being patronized, Eric faces a choice that feels less like rebellion and more like oxygen. Ridge sees this as disloyalty. Eric sees it as survival. What makes this rift so volatile is that neither man is wrong. Ridge genuinely believes he is protecting the Forrester name from dilution, from association with a venture he views as risky and emotionally motivated. Eric genuinely believes that the Forrester name loses meaning when it stops evolving. This is not father versus son. This is past versus future. And the terrifying possibility that the future no longer needs the past's permission. The wager that changes everything. The idea of a wager between Ridge and Eric is more than soap theatrics. It is symbolic warfare. A wager implies equality, that both men have something to lose. Ridge assumes he holds the upper hand. Institutional power, access to capital, control of resources, and the loyalty of the Forrester workforce. Eric, on the other hand, understands something Ridge does not. Loyalty built on fear or convenience evaporates under opportunity. If Eric joins Katie's fashion house, even temporarily, the message it sends is seismic. It tells designers, seamstresses, and executives that prestige is portable, that legitimacy is not tied to a building or a logo, it is tied to people. And people follow respect. The wager is not about whether Katie's venture succeeds. It is about whether Forrester Creations can survive the idea that it is no longer the only place where greatness can exist. Katie Logan's recruitment strategy: precision, not poaching. Katie is not stealing employees. She is inviting them to be seen. That distinction matters. Katie understands the emotional economy of fashion houses better than Ridge ever has. Designers do not leave companies solely for money. They leave because their vision is constrained, their voice is diminished, their growth stunted by hierarchy. Deke Sharp represents the prototype of Katie's ideal recruit. Young, talented, recently rejected, and emotionally raw. Forrester Creations did not fire Deke because he lacked ability. They fired him because he lacked political insulation. Katie offers him something Forrester never did: mentorship without condescension. If Deke joins Katie's team, it signals to others that rejection at Forrester is not the end. It may be the beginning of something better. And that idea terrifies Ridge more than any single hire ever could. Hope Logan. The slow burn toward independence. Hope Logan's dissatisfaction is not explosive. It is corrosive. Every conversation with Thomas about boundaries is layered with subtext. Hope is not just setting limits. She is reminding herself of who she is supposed to be. The problem is that the version of Hope who is endlessly patient, endlessly forgiving, endlessly self-sacrificing no longer fits the life she wants. Hope for the future was built on ideals: sustainability, compassion, inclusivity. But ideals mean nothing without autonomy. When decisions about her line are made without her, when her voice is treated as optional, Hope begins to realize that goodness has become her cage. Katie's fashion house offers Hope something dangerous: agency. If Hope leaves Forrester Creations, it will not be because of Thomas or Liam. It will be because she finally understands that being good does not mean being small. And once Hope steps outside the Forrester orbit, she may never return. Brooke Logan. The price of being the bridge. Brooke has always positioned herself as the bridge between worlds, between Logan's and Forrester's, between emotion and ambition, between past mistakes and future possibilities. But bridges are walked on. As Katie grows stronger and Ridge grows more defensive, Brooke is pulled apart by competing loyalties. She loves her sister. She loves her husband. And she knows deep down that these two forces are now on a collision course. Brooke's fear is not that Katie will fail. It is that Katie will succeed without needing Brooke's mediation. If Katie thrives independently, Brooke loses her role as translator, negotiator, emotional conduit. She becomes just another participant, not the center of gravity she has always been. This existential threat explains Brooke's unease more than any business concern ever could. Bill Spencer's endgame: influence without ownership. Bill Spencer never needs to be the face of anything. His power has always come from positioning himself just outside the spotlight, nudging events in the direction he prefers. Supporting Katie allows Bill to challenge the Forrester dynasty without openly antagonizing it. If Katie fails, Bill loses nothing. If she succeeds, Bill gains leverage. And Bill understands leverage better than anyone on canvas. By backing Katie, Bill also reasserts his role as kingmaker, the man whose approval still carries weight. It is a reminder to Ridge and Eric alike that Spencer influence has never truly diminished. Bill's quiet confidence in Katie is not romantic. It is strategic respect. Dylan's psychological descent. When healing becomes attachment, Dylan's presence introduces a darker undercurrent to the story, one rooted in trauma, vulnerability, and misplaced connection. Finn's kindness is not manipulative. It is instinctual. But kindness, when offered without boundaries, can become dangerous. Dylan does not see Finn as a doctor or a helper. She sees him as a lifeline. The fixation does not begin with desire. It begins with dependence. Scenes involving Dylan are framed deliberately. Prolonged silences, lingering glances, moments where she absorbs emotional energy without returning it. These are classic indicators of someone seeking identity through attachment. If Dylan becomes obsessed with both Will and Elektra, the story shifts from romantic complication to psychological thriller. It suggests a character who does not want love. She wants belonging, control, certainty. And that makes her unpredictable. Steffi Forrester, strength tested by the unseen. Steffi is used to threats she can identify. Affairs, lies, power grabs. What she is not prepared for is a danger she cannot confront directly. Dylan is not hostile. She is not confrontational. She is grateful, vulnerable, seemingly harmless. Those are the most dangerous qualities of all. Steffi's challenge will not be to fight Dylan. It will be to recognize the threat before it manifests. And Steffi's greatest weakness has always been assuming that strength alone is enough. Sometimes vigilance matters more. The first crack in an empire is never loud. It is a pause in conversation, a delayed response to an email, a meeting that happens without one key person invited. That is how Forrester Creations begins to fracture. Not with scandal, but with omission. The first defection. When silence speaks louder than loyalty. Deke Sharp does not announce his departure with a dramatic confrontation. He doesn't demand recognition or lash out at the people who dismissed him. Instead, he does something far more dangerous. He leaves quietly. Katie's offer to Deke is modest by industry standards. Competitive salary, creative input, long-term growth. But emotionally, it is revolutionary. She does not treat him as disposable. She asks him what he wants to build. That question alone makes Forrester Creations feel obsolete. When word spreads internally that Deke is no longer available, panic follows. Not because Deke was indispensable, but because his exit proves something Ridge has refused to accept. People are watching, and they are calculating their own value. Ridge's miscalculation. Authority without consensus. Ridge's response to Deke's departure is swift and wrong. He tightens control. Meetings become more rigid. Creative proposals face harsher scrutiny. Authority is emphasized, not earned. Ridge believes discipline will restore order, unaware that rigidity is the enemy of innovation. The irony is brutal. Ridge accuses Katie of running an emotionally driven operation, while his own leadership becomes increasingly reactive. Eric notices this immediately. And for the first time, Eric does not intervene. That silence, from the founder, from the moral center, lands harder than any argument ever could. Eric Forrester's decision. Legacy is not a graveyard. Eric's eventual meeting with Katie is understated, almost painfully simple. No contracts, no lawyers, no press. Just a conversation between two people who understand what it means to be underestimated. Katie does not pitch Eric with grand promises. She doesn't flatter him or stroke his ego. She simply says, "You still have something to say." That is all Eric has needed to hear. Eric's decision to consult, not even formally join, Katie's fashion house is seismic. It reframes the narrative from rebellion to renaissance. He is not abandoning Forrester Creations. He is reminding the world that creativity does not retire. When Ridge finds out, it feels like betrayal, but deeper than that, it feels like rejection. For the first time in his life, Ridge realizes that inheriting power does not guarantee allegiance. Brooke's breaking point. When mediation fails, Brooke tries. God knows she tries. She arranges conversations, encourages compromise, frames the situation as temporary, manageable, fixable. But the problem is no longer logistical. It is philosophical. Ridge believes loyalty means unity. Katie believes loyalty means respect. Eric believes loyalty means freedom. There is no bridge that connects all three. Brooke's breaking point comes not in a shouting match, but in a moment of clarity. She cannot save everyone without losing herself. And for the first time, she chooses to step back. That decision, subtle, private, changes everything. Because when Brooke stops buffering conflict, the raw truth floods in. Hope Logan's exit strategy. The power of preparation. Hope does not resign impulsively. She studies, observes, waits. Every time she is excluded from a decision, every time her vision is overridden, she documents it, emotionally and professionally. Hope understands something that once eluded her. Being kind does not require being compliant. Her conversations with Katie grow more frequent, more strategic. They are not emotional venting sessions. They are planning meetings disguised as sisterly chats. Hope's potential move to Katie's fashion house is not framed as escape. It is framed as evolution. And when Hope finally admits to herself that she is ready to leave Forrester Creations, the relief is immediate, followed by fear. Because Hope knows that once she leaves, she can never be the same woman she was before. Bill Spencer's quiet satisfaction. Bill watches all of this with restrained amusement. Not because people are hurting, but because truth is emerging. He recognizes the pattern instantly. Institutions collapse when they confuse tradition with entitlement. Bill does not need to manipulate events. He simply allows momentum to take its natural course. His support of Katie remains subtle. A phone call here, a resource there. No public endorsement. Because Bill knows that the strongest moves are the ones no one can accuse you of making. Dylan crosses the line and doesn't notice. While power shifts unfold in fashion houses and boardrooms, Dylan's story moves inward, into obsession, denial, and justification. The beach house gathering is the turning point. Finn under the outdoor shower is not sexualized by the narrative. It is observed. And observation is the danger. Dylan does not look away. She does not interrupt. She memorizes. Later, when Finn thanks her for coming, for being brave, for surviving, Dylan absorbs the praise like oxygen. She does not hear gratitude. She hears permission. From that moment on, Dylan begins to rewrite reality. Finn's kindness becomes intimacy. His concern becomes connection. His boundaries become obstacles. And the most frightening part? She believes she is harmless. Steffi's instincts ignite too late. Steffi senses something is off, not dramatic, not explosive, just wrong. It is the way Dylan lingers. The way her eyes track Finn even when he isn't speaking. The way gratitude has morphed into expectation. Steffi's mistake is assuming she has time. She does not. Because obsession does not announce itself. It escalates quietly, fueled by fantasy and reinforced by silence. And Dylan is no longer silent. Some decisions announce themselves with speeches and signatures. Others happen quietly, in moments so small they almost feel accidental, until the damage is done. Hope Logan crosses the line she can't uncross. Hope chooses her moment carefully. Not after an argument. Not after a snub. Not after being dismissed. She waits until calm returns, because calm makes truth harder to deny. Her meeting with Ridge is not emotional. That's what shocks him. Hope speaks clearly, slowly, with deliberate restraint. She explains that she no longer feels ownership over her work, that her ideas are filtered, diluted, and redirected before they ever reach daylight. Ridge responds the way he always does when confronted with dissatisfaction. He minimizes. He reassures her that her line matters, that things will improve. That change takes time. Hope listens and then delivers the sentence that changes everything. I've already accepted another offer. There is no anger in her voice. No triumph. Only certainty. Ridge's reaction is not explosive. It is stunned. Because for the first time, he realizes Hope didn't threaten to leave. She planned to. Hope's exit from Forrester Creations isn't dramatic, but it is devastating. Internally, it confirms what many already feared. Loyalty is no longer enough to secure a future there. And once Hope leaves, others begin imagining their own exits. Katie's fashion house takes shape and gains gravity. Katie does not rush the announcement of her fashion house. She allows curiosity to build. When the name is finally revealed, it is not flashy or confrontational. It is elegant, intentional, designed to communicate seriousness rather than rebellion. The message is clear. This is not a vanity project. This is infrastructure. Deke's role is announced shortly afterward, not as a face but as a contributor. Hope's involvement is acknowledged, but without sensationalism. Katie understands optics. She refuses to frame success as theft. That restraint infuriates Ridge more than any provocation could, because it leaves him nowhere to point blame. Ridge overplays his hand. Ridge's counterattack is rooted in fear, not strategy. He begins enforcing loyalty clauses, tightening contracts, reasserting creative authority. The goal is control, but the effect is panic. Designers whisper. Assistants quietly update resumes. Meetings become tense, brittle affairs where innovation feels dangerous. The culture shifts from collaborative to defensive. And then Ridge makes his biggest mistake. He challenges Eric. Not privately, not carefully, but publicly. He questions his father's judgment, suggests that aligning with Katie could tarnish the Forrester legacy, frames Eric's involvement as nostalgia masquerading as relevance. Eric does not raise his voice. He does something far more devastating. He corrects Ridge. He reminds him calmly that the Forrester name does not belong to the loudest voice in the room, that legacy is built through evolution, not preservation, and that creativity dies the moment it becomes afraid. The room goes silent, and in that silence, Ridge loses something he may never fully regain. Eric chooses visibility. Eric's decision to formally join Katie's fashion house as a consultant is deliberate. It is not about rebellion. It is about clarity. For the first time, Eric allows himself to be seen not as a retired icon, but as an active creative force. His designs are not meant to compete with Forrester creations. They are meant to remind the industry what passion looks like when it is unburdened by politics. The press responds instantly, not with scandal but admiration. Articles frame Eric's move as courageous, visionary, long overdue. The narrative shifts away from family feud and toward creative renaissance. Ridge watches the coverage in silence, and for the first time he understands that power does not protect you from irrelevance. Brooke watches the center collapse. Brooke finds herself in an unfamiliar position. Neutral ground no longer exists. She loves Ridge. She respects Eric. She supports Katie. And for the first time, she realizes that balance is impossible. Her emotional exhaustion becomes visible, not through tears but withdrawal. Brooke stops intervening, stops smoothing things over, stops translating intentions. That absence is profound, because Brooke was the glue. Without her, conversations fracture faster, misunderstandings multiply, and resentment hardens into something permanent. Dylan's behavior escalates quietly, strategically. While boardrooms implode, Dylan's obsession sharpens. She stops framing her interest in Finn as emotional confusion. She begins reframing it as destiny. Every interaction becomes evidence. Every smile becomes affirmation. Every boundary becomes a challenge to overcome rather than a signal to respect. The outdoor shower moment is no longer a memory. It is a reference point. She replays it, reinterprets it, convincing herself that something unspoken passed between them. Dylan begins adjusting her routines. Her visits align with Finn's schedule. Her conversations with Steffi feel increasingly performative. Friendly on the surface, competitive underneath. And the most dangerous shift? Dylan stops seeing Steffi as Finn's wife. She begins seeing her as an obstacle. Steffi senses the threat but hesitates. Steffi is not oblivious. She notices the way Dylan mirrors her tone, the way she inserts herself into conversations that do not involve her, the way her gaze lingers just a beat too long. But Steffi hesitates, because accusing someone of obsession without proof feels cruel, because trauma complicates perception, because Finn's compassion makes confrontation feel unnecessary. That hesitation becomes Dylan's opportunity, because obsession thrives in ambiguity. And Dylan has learned how to operate in the shadows of kindness. There is a moment in every slow-burning disaster when the warning signs stop whispering and start screaming. By the time anyone is willing to listen, the damage is already in motion. Finn finally sees what everyone else missed. Finn does not realize something is wrong all at once. It happens in fragments. A pause that lasts too long. A compliment that feels oddly intimate. A question that doesn't make sense unless it's rooted in fixation. Dylan's presence begins to feel unavoidable. Not intrusive, calculated. She never crosses a line blatantly. Instead, she positions herself just close enough to blur boundaries without violating them outright. Finn, a man wired for empathy, keeps excusing it. She's been through trauma. She's lonely. She's grateful. But then comes the moment that resets everything. Dylan refers to an argument Finn and Steffi had, one that happened behind closed doors. A private conversation. At home. Unshared. Finn freezes. Because there is no innocent explanation for knowing something she was never told. He asks where she heard it. Dylan smiles. Shrugs. Changes the subject. That's when Finn understands this is no longer about emotional confusion. This is surveillance. Steffi confronts Dylan. and learns the truth is worse than fear. Steffi does not scream. She does not threaten. She invites Dylan to talk. That alone is a mistake. Dylan doesn't deny anything outright. Instead, she reframes everything as misunderstanding, emotional connection, shared vulnerability. She speaks in language designed to sound harmless, but every sentence subtly undermines Steffi's place in Finn's life. "You're so lucky," Dylan says softly. "Most women never really see him the way I do." That's when Steffi realizes the danger. Not because Dylan wants Finn, but because Dylan believes Finn belongs to her. Steffi ends the conversation abruptly. She tells Finn everything. And for the first time, Finn doesn't try to soften it. He calls security. He sets boundaries. He makes it clear that Dylan is no longer welcome in their personal orbit. Dylan accepts this calmly. Too calmly. Obsession doesn't end, it evolves. Cutting Dylan off does not dissolve her fixation. It sharpens it. She begins narrating her own victimhood, convincing herself that Steffi manipulated Finn, that the truth was stolen from her, that she was pushed out because she mattered too much. This is where obsession becomes delusion. Dylan doesn't lash out immediately. She retreats. And in that retreat, she starts planning. Katie's fashion house secures its first industry shockwave. While personal chaos brews, Katie's business momentum accelerates. Her fashion house debuts its first limited collection. Not with spectacle, but with precision. The designs are clean, wearable, and unmistakably intentional. Critics praise the clarity of vision. And then comes the headline that rattles Forrester Creations. A major European retailer places a long-term order. Not a test run. Not a trial capsule. A commitment. The industry begins whispering a word no one expected to associate with Katie's venture so soon. Threat. Ridge hears the news in a meeting meant to reassure investors. Instead, it destabilizes them. Ridge finds himself alone, and it's entirely his doing. Ridge's leadership style, once tolerated, now feels archaic. His refusal to adapt, his insistence on control, his unwillingness to admit missteps. Designers stop defending him. Executives stop covering for him. Even allies begin hedging their language. And the most painful blow? Eric stops intervening. Not out of spite. Out of exhaustion. Eric understands something Ridge does not. Sometimes, people must feel the consequences of their choices without protection. Brooke reaches her breaking point. Brooke finally says what she's been holding back for months. She tells Ridge that he isn't losing people because they're disloyal. He's losing them because he refuses to listen. She tells him that control is not leadership, that fear is not respect, that legacy means nothing if no one wants to carry it forward. Ridge doesn't argue. He deflects. And in doing so, confirms her worst fear. Brooke doesn't leave him, but something in her disengages, and Ridge feels it immediately. Dylan makes her move. The turning point comes quietly. A message. An anonymous tip. A carefully placed suggestion. Someone contacts the press with a claim about Finn's professional conduct, vague enough to raise suspicion, specific enough to demand investigation. It isn't true, but it doesn't have to be, because rumors don't need evidence to cause damage. Finn realizes instantly where it came from, and for the first time, fear replaces empathy, because obsession, once weaponized, does not stop on its own. The storm breaks, and no one escapes unchanged. As investigations begin, alliances fracture. Steffi goes into defense mode. Finn prepares for a fight he never asked for. Katie's success triggers competitive retaliation. Ridge watches the ground shift beneath him. Eric prepares to step in, not as a father, but as a guardian of something larger than any one person. And Dylan? Dylan watches everything unfold with quiet satisfaction. Because in her mind, chaos proves she mattered.